Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the May 9th meeting of the City County Utility Commission. It is great to be in person again, although somewhat confined. This is an odd but surreal feeling, so welcome. Ms. Broom, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Randall Tuttle.
Is present.
Vice Chair Wesley Curtis.
Present.
Commissioner Harold Day.
Present.
Commissioner Harold Eustache. Commissioner Tom Griffin.
Here.
Commissioner Yvonne Hines.
Here.
Commissioner Hugh Jernigan. Commissioner Dwayne Long. Commissioner Chris Parker.
Present.
Commissioner Charles Wilson.
Present.
Commissioner Alan Younger.
Okay.
Oh, we heard him. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so unusually we have to go to an agenda item first. Mr. Curtis, agenda item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would join me down front here for a
Me?
second. Yes, you. And I think what we're going to do is face the camera this way.
You want Beth to read it first?
Yeah, we can, all right.
Okay, this is the resolution of appreciation to Randall S. Tuttle. Whereas the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission was founded in June 1976, and whereas Randall S. Tuttle has been generous with his time and effort to serve on the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission from 2008 to 2022, and whereas during his tenure, he served as chair of the Finance Committee, overall vice chair, and chair of the Utility Commission, and whereas Randall S. Tuttle's term on the commission ends on June 30, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved by the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission, a joint agency of the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, that it hereby expresses sincere appreciation to Randall S. Tuttle for 14 years of dedicated service given to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission and the citizens of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. Be it further resolved that the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission acknowledges the significant contributions Randall S. Tuttle has made to the delivery of high-quality services to the citizens of this city and county. Be it further resolved that this resolution is reflected in the minutes of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission, and a copy is furnished to Randall S. Tuttle. The resolution of appreciation to Randall S. Tuttle has been executed and adopted on this, the 9th day of May, 2022.
Congratulations, Randall.
Thank you, Wesley.
And I think
Well,
on behalf of the board, certainly we all would like to have 10 or 15 or 30 minutes to say something. We don't have that time.
Nor would I grant it.
No, we certainly appreciate all the time that you've had for us and that you've been with us, been with the board. You've certainly been a great mentor for me coming along with all that you have shared and pointed out over the years. We've got also another little special item. Where is he?
He's right there.
There he is. Chris, if you would. Not only do you have to spend a lot of time and effort, but there's also a partner of yours that has had to sacrifice your wife in all your time that you've spent. And Chris?
So the commissioners, we decided that for all those many years that you were serving the community, that meant you weren't able to spend time with Claire. And I know how much more fun that is than working here. And so what we did is we have got a restaurant gift card to Ryan's that you were going to present to Claire. Now, the question that the commissioners had was, is she going to bring you when she goes to Ryan's?
I think that's a 50-50 event.
Very good. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
I got some swag.
Yeah, you got the swag. So we know how you are about bottled water. This is not the plastic kind. This is where you can fill it up
This
from
is
your tap.
Exactly, from the second
And
best in the...
That's right. That's right. And then a pin set with your name and our logo on it, just to show our appreciation for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, enough of that.
Okay, so I guess we do need to do a resolution and a motion and adoption and all that stuff for the resolution of appreciation.
All right, so I guess so if I could get a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved and second. All those in favor, show it by saying, I guess you can call roll.
Nope, you don't need to call roll
All
for
right,
this, so
okay,
you just
great,
say-
great, great. All those in favor, let me have a show of hands.
Aye.
Aye. All right, look, unanimous. I see Alan's hands up as well. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. It's funny, they got a bottle there for me. When I joined the commission, I kept asking why we were serving bottled water upstairs since we're in the water business, and that was the inside joke. Mr. Robert, take it away.
Yes, okay, so let me, give me just a second. Let me make sure I need to clarify whether we need to call the roll individually for each item that gets passed. Yes, okay, never mind. Since it's still a hybrid meeting, we are going to have to take a roll call for each item. Correct, Marilena? Okay,
Okay.
so go ahead, Beth, do the roll call for the resolution.
Okay.
Okay, would that not include Mr. Tuttle, I guess? Vice Chair Wesley Curtis,
Yes.
Commissioner Harold Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Harold Eustache, Commissioner Tom Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Yvonne Hines,
Yes.
Commissioner Hugh Jernigan, Commissioner Dwayne Long, Commissioner Chris Parker,
Definitely support.
Commissioner Charles Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Alan Younger.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you all. Courtney, so if that is the case, then we're going to revert to consent agenda approach where commission members can pull items then, rather than voting one by one.
Okay.
All right.
That makes sense, thank you.
Turn it to you.
Okay, so next, I have a couple of announcements, and then we'll have our water and wastewater updates, solid waste updates, present our agenda items. Then we'll have a water and sewer fee discussion, and if there's time, we'll have our CIP update at the end. So a couple of announcements. Bill Brewer, who is here with us today, has been promoted to our Deputy Director of Water and Wastewater Treatment. And yeah, we're definitely excited to have him. He comes up with, he's been a part of the utility and has a lot of years' experience and definitely will be a smooth transition into that new role. Just to put it on your radar, we will have a future planning and policy meeting to discuss sanitary sewer lift stations. I've already spoken to Mr. Griffin, who's the chair of the Planning and Policy Committee, and also some other utility commission members about the need to start discussing what we want to do with infrastructure. Well, let me back up. So we've pretty much filled in all the areas to be developed within our current footprint, our service area, sanitary sewer service area. And there's development that's occurring outside that. So still within Forsyth County, but outside of what we would consider our sewer service area. So we need to start thinking through how we want to handle those situations. So for a development outside of the service area, we would need a lift station. Do we want to have those lift stations be private lift stations, or do we want to, what we want to do is develop a policy to determine when we want to accept those lift stations within our system. And so I'll be working with the Planning and Policy Committee to develop what that policy looks like and what those guidelines look like. So that's just something to put on your radar that we're going to be moving forward with in the near future. We currently have 75 departmental vacancies, which is high again. I mean, we'd taken some steps to lower that number, but it is high again. It's, for every position we fill, it seems like we lose a position. So we're still working hard to fill those seats, working with HR to develop, we've got referral and incentive bonuses, or referral and sign-on incentives that we're trying to implement. The council just approved other benefits to employees, such as there was 3 additional holidays added to our holiday allotment. There's other things that the council are looking at to consider to try to retain and recruit new employees. So we're still working on that. We did have success from the March career fair. So we did hire some, and we're getting some new people on board. So hopefully that number will come down. Free leaf mulch giveaway was a success again this year. We exhausted all that on April 30th. And then Earth Day Fair at the fairgrounds, we had about 8,000 estimated attendees. So that was an event that was also successful. We had a table set up and had some of our equipment out there. And I believe a lot of people were very interested in our vehicles, right? And what we had to show. So. And our prize wheel, right, Gail? The prize wheel, yeah.
And the demo of the
So we have a lot of cool things to draw the attention of the public. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Stover to give a water and wastewater update.
Thank you, Courtney. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So far this fiscal year, we've issued 41 water and sewer permits, totaling $11.2 million. This next slide, you'll see the breakdown between water and sewer mileage with 7.3 miles of water and 5.6 miles of sewer. Rainfall data, it was kind of a dry month, just shy of 2 inches of rain for April, a little more than we were this time last year, substantially less than 2020. Currently, Forsyth County is not under any drought conditions. Water production is up slightly from this time last year, about 1.1 million gallons per day, so a little over 1% increase. Collection system update, this hasn't changed since we presented it last month. We still haven't received any reports for February, March, or April. Here's the good news. We are still substantially below where we were this time last year and the year before, and we're on pace for another record low year with SSO counts. 2 more months to go, and hopefully they're good months. We have had an uptick of SSOs in March and April, as you'll see on this next graph. This is the total number of SSOs by cause. The red line is the 5-year average, so you can see that every year there's an uptick in the spring for some reason. We haven't identified why that is. But there was 8 total SSOs in April, 6 of which were O&M related, 2 were classified as other. 1 was related to a contractor was doing a pipe burst, and there was some sewer that went into an open storm drain. The other was a flapper valve where an 8-inch main tied into a large outfall that had failed in the closed position, and both of those have been corrected since. Cleaning productivity, we're well above our 10% permit requirement, slightly below our 18% scheduled cleaning goal. And then here's our expenditure graph. We're well below what we projected in the budget for this year, actually below where we were this time last year at $36.6 million. And more good news, we are above, as far as revenues go, what we were projecting in the budget and above where we were last year at $105.6 million.
Thank you,
Any
Mike.
questions?
And Mike, I presume the expenditures relate to our 75 vacancies. Is that pretty much the main reason?
That's probably the biggest reason, I
All right,
would think.
thanks.
Everything else is up.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll start with our tonnage update. So far this year, we've taken in 251,945 tons, so we're ahead of the budget, continuing that trend of being ahead of last year and ahead of the budget. Continuing to see some volatility on a monthly basis. We've come down from that high we saw in March to 20,294 tons in the month of April. We did reopen the construction and demolition landfill, so we are up to 20,276 tons at that facility. And moving on to the financials, expenditures, unlike water and sewer, are slightly above last year's. We're at $6 million, just edged above last year's expenditures at this point. And revenues are above the budget, $10.5 million, and ahead of where we were last year. I think it was about 9.4 million last year. Wanted to mention also that we've completed our cost of service study. This calculates life cycle costs across the life of Haynes Mill Road landfill. The aggregate cost of all of our programs is about $35 per ton. So our rates at $33 and $34 per ton are slightly under the 35. We do receive revenues from other sources to make up that difference, so we feel comfortable with the $33 and $34 rates that are proposed for next year.
I got a question.
Yeah, of course.
What is the average wait time at Haynes Mill to get across the scales? Do you know?
That's an excellent question. I don't know that I have a figure for that. It is about a mile from the scale house back to where the working face is. So even with no customers, it's going to take 15, 20
I
minutes
got a
perhaps.
couple calls about people having to wait in line to get to the scales, about 25 or 30 vehicles in front of them.
Right.
Is that a normal day or just odd?
You know, this year we have, as you saw in the month of March, that really high tonnage rate. We have had excessive numbers of trips and really high tonnage coming in. So it's not surprising that you would have seen longer lines this year in particular.
Yeah. Well, I got a call from a guy that comes up there 3 or 4 times a day, and he said, I can't make but 2 trips some days because I have to wait in line so long.
It is something that we're aware of and trying to expedite. We have 2 sets of scales. Both of them should be in operation, but it's a difficult issue when we have that much traffic coming in.
I'll add to that. I know there's certain times of the day that are more, that are busier than others. But we're more than, if you want to give the contact information to us, we're more than happy to reach out to this customer.
I wouldn't give him your number.
You would not?
Well, we're here, and we obviously want to hear that feedback to try to make it, to help with that issue. We did have that issue during the pandemic where there was extremely long lines, and as Jan mentioned, when we have just extreme high volumes, we'll see those issues as well. So, but we need to try to manage that as best we can. So, send anybody our way that you need to.
I think, too, that we've reopened the construction and demolition landfill, all that traffic would be diverted back down to Old Salisbury Road. So that should make a difference as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we start with the agenda? Okay. I guess first we have approval of the meeting minutes. And so, Chair Tuttle, you do want to wait to the end just to do a consent again?
Yes, please.
All right. So we have the meeting minutes from the April meeting, and then our first operations item is item number 3, and it's a resolution authorizing execution of various agreements regarding proposed water and sanitary sewer improvements to be installed within various developments with no refunds. There are 5 developments. The total estimated water cost is $986,000, and the total estimated sewer cost is $1,831,900. Okay. Item number 4 is consideration of a resolution approving purchase orders for sole source vendors. These are purchases that will cover the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. They'll be awarded to each vendor as needed. We bring this list to you yearly, each year. And this is a list that's based upon the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143-129E, which provides that the formal bid requirements do not apply to purchases of apparatuses, supplies, materials, or equipment when performance or price competition for a product are not available, a needed product is available from only one source of supply, or when standardization or compatibility is the overriding consideration.
I've got a question about that.
Okay.
So as I look at the historical data on this, the total estimate to spend projected for this incoming year would be $6,347,000. Looking at 2021, it was about $5.3 million. Looking at 2020, it was about $4.4 million. Looking at 2019, it was about $4.1 million. So I'm noticing that we seem to be continually going up. Now, I kind of looked through and compared it to last year, and it does look like we've got a number of new vendors, but then there's also quite a number where the estimate spend is going up as well. So maybe my question would be, if I looked at last year when we were estimating about 5.3 million, how much of that do we actually spend? Do we have numbers on that? Do we keep numbers on what we actually spend off of these estimates?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I think we can go back and get that information, but I don't have that for you today. I do know that, obviously, we stay under these numbers, obviously.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see any trends here, because I noticed the trends going up for the estimate, but if the actual, I would just be interested in seeing that.
And so, and you're right, the value has gone up each year. And this year, when I'm looking at the list, I do know, obviously, we're dealing with inflation. So a lot of the increases are just the inflated rates right now, our cost of doing business. There was, as you mentioned, a couple new vendors. I can't remember the exact amount, but there wasn't that many new ones that we added to the list.
Well, I'm seeing a few, and if I'm not mistaken, for instance, like Linder Industrial Machinery at 100,000, National Equipment Dealers at 110, Pete Duty and Associates at 125. And I'm kind of wondering, what were we doing for those supplies in the past? Because those are more than, $5,000. There are a lot of $5,000 and $10,000 ones as well. I'm just wondering in the past.
So I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, these are new vendors. And comparing it to last year, I didn't really see a comparable vendor. So is this just new items that we're going to need on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, and so this may answer your question, but may not. So we can do sole source items less than 30,000 without taking it to a board for approval. We have made a decision to go ahead and add in those smaller items too, just to have it documented that it goes to that it is part of the board. But there could be other sole source items throughout the year that come up that if, it's $5,000 or $10,000, it doesn't require board action. So maybe that's the difference where it may not have showed up last year and it's on the list.
Well, those are some, and admittedly on that, but there's also some that are over 100,000. So, and not understanding it, when we approve it for 1 year, I notice that we have a tendency to keep them on the list. So it's not like we're using them once every 5 years, but I don't know. They may just be having a placeholder spot when we're looking at that. That just is what my curiosity is, and probably being able to see the actual spend versus the estimated might help to answer my questions.
Courtney, may I answer one of those?
Yes.
National Equipment Dealers was actually on the list last year, but they were May Equipment Company.
So
they
we
were
had a name
identified
change.
differently. I think the parent company is National Equipment Dealers.
Yeah, and there was another one, I think Brown and Morrison, Monyo Pumps. I mean, it may be there was a name change or we're getting a new vendor. I don't know, but I guess this is part of not having to go through that vendor stuff. Anyway, it just keeps kind of going up and up. So that was just my question. Thank you.
We can get a report back if we.
Yeah, well, I think if you could just, I think, answer the question with what the actual spend is, I think that would help. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5 is a consideration of a resolution awarding a contract for hydrants. This is a contract to purchase various sizes and quantities of hydrants throughout the year as needed. There's a list of the bidders. Raleigh Windwater Works Company was a low bidder, but stated in their bid that the prices were only good through June 30th of this year, so that would not meet our requirements. So it's recommended that a contract to purchase hydrants be awarded to Corin, Maine, who is the second low bidder in the estimated amount of $380,575. Item number 6 is consideration of a resolution awarding a contract extension for fire hydrant replacements. In May of 2020, the commission awarded a contract to Ramey Incorporated in the amount of $1.5 million for the fire hydrant replacement project. Terms of the bid allow this contract to be renewed for one additional term of equal or lesser amount if both parties agree and funds are available for that purpose. So staff is requesting to extend this contract for the additional term with the work beginning July 1st of 2022. Ramey has requested a price increase from $4,700 to $5,000 per hydrant, which is allowed by the contract and the CPI increase. So the request is reasonable, acceptable. And then also Ramey has agreed to the MWBE subcontracting goals that were established for this project. So it's recommended that Ramey be awarded the contract extension in the amount of $1.5 million.
I've got a question on this. I know there's probably a methodology, and maybe you could share that with the commission, about how you determine the speed with which you replace a broken fire hydrant. I know I've talked to Mr. Stover about one. I believe it was in Louisville area that they had reported it back in August. So kind of how, because as I see us laying out $1.5 million, what is the methodology for how soon a broken hydrant gets replaced or fixed?
There is no defined methodology, but essentially, if we have 3 more hydrants in a row that are out of service, we prioritize those. Or if there's a hydrant that is near a school or a hospital or a critical care facility, we'll prioritize those as well. That's really our methodology. Does that answer your question?
Well, I mean, how long, as we lay this money out, I mean, what the hope is that we would be able to that we wouldn't have hydrants that aren't out of service for extended periods of time. I mean, they were placed there for a reason. So is there a threshold when we say a hydrant's been out for 6 months that we do need to get it fixed? What is the threshold? Because I know there's a couple of commissioners here who periodically get phone calls from the fire department asking us about issues like this. So I'd like to give them a good response.
Yeah, so we've been working with the fire department to make sure that we have an updated list. So we've told the fire department, if you see a hydrant that's out of service, we may not know about it. So they call and let us know that it's out of service. And then we give the list to Ramey, and they work it into their schedule. So we have to stay on top of the contractor to make sure they're getting the work done.
So I hate to interrupt, but you say call us. Are you talking about CityLink?
Well, it could be CityLink. Well, we recommend that when people have a problem that they do report it through CityLink so that we have a record of it. But of course, some people will call directly, and then we have to put it into our system to manage that. But we need to document it, put it into the system, and then it gets into a queue with the other backlog and give that list to the contractor.
So I hate to go down this wormhole, but there potentially could be a problem with CityLink not getting the information to you versus you getting the information to Ramey, because, I mean, I don't know. Because sometimes, you might not get that report from CityLink for whatever reason. Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, I've got a question. But Mike, what kind of production rate do we get out of Ramey? What do you have any idea how many they're doing in a month?
Well, they're probably doing at least 4 or 5 a week. Depending on, how many we give them. I think that $1.5 million equates to roughly 275 or 300 hydrants.
How many have you got out right now? Have you got any idea?
I don't know, but I can find that information out for you pretty easily. Mr. Parker, to answer your question, those outstanding ones that go, more than 6 months are usually 9 times out of 10 the ones that we don't have a work order or a call on. So every spring, every fire department in the system is outflowing hydrants for their inspections, and we always have a wave of replacements and repairs. Assuming they get it to us, we can get it, get a tech to investigate, get a work order created, and get it on the list. But if we don't hear about it, there's not much we can do.
Yeah, I understand. I just, if there is an issue with CityLink, I mean, what I may just tell the fire department people who talk to me is report it to CityLink and also report it to utilities?
I would encourage them to still go to CityLink. I have not heard any.
Okay.
I've not heard any issues with CityLink. In fact, we've been working with the county fire marshal and CityLink to streamline the process, the intake of those calls. They've got some criteria where we can send it electronically, and instead of waiting on a phone call to speak to an agent. So we are streamlining that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any idea of the average turnaround time of the time something gets on the list until it's replaced or repaired?
I would say that it's better than it ever has been. We started these hydrant replacement contracts 3 or 4 years back. And I would say right now, you're looking at less than a year. Most of the time, less than 6 months. But keep in mind, we probably have over 25,000 hydrants.
I got one comment saying this. A lot of people don't know this, but your homeowner's insurance has got an ISO rating. It's got to do with water flow. So we're a really important part of this link. Make sure we got those hydrants working.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point. And I will say that our Winston-Salem Fire Department always ranks really high because of the water system that we have here. They get a lot of points because the availability of water.
I think the last time I remember that 50% of the grade is water flow. And that's the reason we got a good insurance policies that we got at home.
That's right. And I think too, when we get waves of hydrants, like when the fire department does their annual flush, of course the turnaround time for that's going to take a little bit longer because you got a wave of them, so we can't get to them as quickly. But like if somebody was to report something to me, I may get a call from a commission member. Those can get the turnaround time of those can turn around pretty fast because we may not have that big wave of hydrants on the list at that time. So it's really just dependent.
If you can't tell, this was a lunchtime discussion upstairs. And so maybe just in a future meeting, come, Mike, with some stats of how many are out, and just to give a snapshot or a dashboard review of the status. I think that would answer a lot of questions.
Thanks. Okay, item 7. Consideration of a resolution awarding an annual purchase order for centrifuge polymer. The Archaeology Centrifuge facility uses polymer to separate solids from watering prior to digester treatment. It's part of the process. SNF Polydine and Solinus were the only 2 vendors that were to schedule the required product testing that we need that says that they're successful to submit a bid. So then purchasing then solicited competitive bids from both vendors to provide the polymer. SNF Polydine was the low bidder at $1.33 which is their unit price. This is a pretty significant increase you can see since 2020. We did do some comparison. The town of Cary recently awarded a contract at a unit price of $1.34, and the city of High Point was at $1.35. So it is in line with what other utilities are, the bids that they're receiving. There's a little bit of history there that shows our process of how we piggybacked on other contracts, and then this year ended up rebidding. But it is recommended that a contract be awarded to SNF Polydine in the estimated annual amount of $362,601.89. This is from July 1st of 2022 through June 30th, 2023, with the option to extend for 2 additional 12-month periods, provided that both parties agree and funds are available, making the total award possible in the estimated amount of $1,087,805.67. Again, we're going to be monitoring this. We know the cost of chemicals are going up. Hopefully, they'll come back down, but depending on where we're at, and a year from now will be whether we decide to extend this or rebid or piggyback off another contract.
Welcome, Mr. Eustache.
Any questions on that item? Okay, item 8 is consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of an engineer agreement with Hydrostructures, PA, to provide construction administration services for a North Carolina Department of Transportation Northern Beltway construction project. So the DOT is going to construct a portion of the Northern Beltway from Salem Parkway to Interstate 40, And there are several thousand feet of water and sewer that will need to be relocated as part of that project. So through a selection process, Hydrostructures was selected as the vendor. Staff negotiated a scope and fee with Hydrostructures for construction administration services for the project. And the fee is $647,473. And this is just to observe the water and sewer that's built, make sure it's built according to our standards for that roadway project. Okay. Item number 9 is consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of an engineering agreement with HDR Engineering of the Carolinas for design and bidding services for the Idols Dam sediment removal and control project. Switch to the picture. The Idols Dam contains a 48-inch pipe equipped with a slide gate, which allows water to flow through one side of the dam to the other. The trash rakes installed on the inlet side of the pipe is prone to clogging due to debris in the river, which results in sediment accumulation. And I'll show you on these pictures here shortly. But this project is to be able to design, it's to provide design of a medical system to remove debris from the existing trash rakes and remove accumulated sediment to maintain the functionality of the pipe. It also is going to include the replacement of a canoe portage located on the Davie County side of the dam, along with additional safety warning signage to be placed upstream of the dam. Through a selection process, HDR was the selected vendor, and staff negotiated a fee of $137,200 with HDR for these services. So from this picture here, the picture on your left shows the dam. And you can see this orange kind of floating system right here. On the right side, this is the same orange floating system. And here's this yellow piping that shows up in the picture on the left right here. So you can see how the sediment has built up in front of this 48-inch pipe. So this project just gives us the ability to clean off that debris, keep that debris out of there so we can keep that pipe functioning.
Could I go back and ask a question about item 8? Just for my knowledge going forward on this with item 8. So it's about $650,000 for this. Once this project gets in place, are we going to be getting a bill from DOT for the actual moving of these lines?
So, yes. Okay. For all of them or any of them in the right of way? So Todd Lewis says that yes, we will. So anything that was in the existing state right-of-way that has to be relocated, we will be getting a bill for. If you recall, if we were there first, so if it was a public right-of-way and we're there and we have to move the infrastructure for their road project, then we're responsible for paying for it. If we weren't in the public right-of-way and they're coming through with a new public right-of-way, then the DOT is responsible for relocating that infrastructure.
So later on down the line, we should see an item for several $1 million for that.
Correct.
Question for Todd. Todd, I assume that some of these lines are off-street lines that are in there. So would we be reimbursed by the state for those?
Yeah, that's correct. For this project, a lot of it is sewer work, so there's easements. Yeah, for this project, there's quite a bit of sewer work involved, so any easements that we have obtained, the state pays for that portion. So the total cost of all the relocation work for this project is around $6 million. We're paying around half of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on item 9, which was the Idols Dam sediment removal project? Okay, the next two items are dealing with our budget. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides to go over the high-level pieces of the budget. We've had our previous Finance Committee meetings to present both the capital and the operations budget. So I won't go through all of it, just a few slides just as a refresher. So item number 10 is consideration of a resolution approving the FY 2022-23 solid waste operations and capital improvement budget and requesting adoption by the City Council. The first slide here is a summary of the proposed operations budget. Personnel expenses increase by 4.84%. That includes a merit increase for employees, benefits, and the addition of a new position. Supply and services increases by 5.45%. County recycling increases by 3.71%. Debt service is an increase at 0.21%. And NCMLC payments at 10.7% increase, and that is our capital outlay, so our vehicles. Overall, an increase to the solid waste budget of 5.26%. As I mentioned, one new position for utilities fleet manager. This position would analyze, do analysis of repair maintenance expenses and try to identify cost-saving measures, development of replacement schedules of heavy equipment. They'll track status of equipment vehicles receiving repair and service, fuel analysis, and other miscellaneous responsibilities. The NCMLC equipment requests. Solid waste has 6 requests of vehicle replacements. The biggest request is our large compactor replacement, which is $1.1 million, roughly. The total purchase price for this year is $2,366,500 with the 1/5 payment of $473,300. And this is the capital improvement budget summary slide. There are 4 different project descriptions here. The budget year appropriation request is $17,350,000. The majority of that, $15 million of it, is for the MSC wall development project. And over the 6-year planning window, the estimated budget request is just shy of $39 million. The revenues here, the total proposed revenues for the solid waste fund is $13,643,380, which is an increase of 3.27%. Revenue projections, tip fees increased by 2.97%. This is largely driven by tonnage projections and rate changes. There's non-operating revenues budgeted similarly that includes scrap tire tax, disposal tax, distribution, resource recovery income. The recommended rate increase is $1 per ton to the discount rate at Haynes landfill and $1 per ton increase in the yard waste facilities. And this is supported by the cost of service study. And this slide, and it was mentioned at our last meeting, a comparison slide. This is the breakdown of other publicly and private owned landfills. You can see for Davidson County, High Point, Raleigh, Rowan County, and of course ourselves, how we compare on the municipal solid waste side. We do have very competitive rates. Not as much to benchmark ourselves against publicly with construction and demolition. The public transfer facilities, Durham and Greensboro, those rates are higher, and you see that typically at transfer facilities versus landfill facilities. And then there's the privately owned landfills. We have 3 there that have higher rates as well. Any questions on this slide? I think it's my last slide for, yeah. Any questions on the solid waste budget? Okay, the next item is item 11. And its consideration of a resolution approving the FY 2022-23 water and wastewater operations and capital improvement budgets and requesting adoption by the city council. Again, I'll go over a couple of slides for water and sewer, similar to what I did for solid waste. So this is the proposed operations budget summary. Personnel expenses increased by 6.38%. Supplies and services, 12.91% increase. Operating capital is a new budget line item. It's not new to us. We just, it's an accounting function, and we are budgeting it separately versus under supplies and services that were done in the past, the way we did in the past. It's for operating expenses like pumps that wouldn't necessarily fall under the NCMLC piece. NCMLC payments increased by 3.37%. Our debt service payment, we see a decrease this year of 3.83%. State loans, we see a decrease in that of 2.9%, and then transfers out of 4.05%. Overall, a 3.97% increase to the water and sewer operations budget. One new position for water and sewer is the senior utilities electrical specialist. This is to maintain electrical components at water treatment, wastewater treatment plants. The staffing levels of this group have been the same since the 80s, even though we've added new pieces of equipment and new infrastructure for them to maintain. And their responsibilities have increased over time. It also provides some succession planning by creating a senior position, whereas we just have 3 utilities electrical specialists now. This is the list for the water and sewer side for capital outlay equipment requests. There's UFO, utility field operations has 13 pieces of equipment. Wastewater treatment has 1, and water treatment has 3. So 17 pieces of equipment. Approximate cost is $1,436,000, and the 1/5 payment is $287,200. Water and wastewater CIP. The budget year appropriation requests are $42 million. There's several different projects in water distribution and wastewater collection, water treatment, and wastewater treatment. Over the 6-year planning window, we estimate that the requested appropriations will be $312,950,000.
We wish.
I know. As far as the rate recommendations, we've had a lot of discussions about our the rate increase this year. For the base charges, the readiness to serve, we're keeping the small meter monthly charges flat to slowly align with bi-monthly charges, because we know eventually we're going to go to monthly charges with our AMI project. We are increasing the tier 1 cutoff and recovering offsetting revenues from tiers 2 and 3. This provides relief to the average usage residential customer. There's minimal impacts across customer categories, and it begins transition to monthly charges. It's overall an increase of it's estimated to increase revenues by 4.5%. Just a little bit, diving in a little deeper on the tier changes. So the 600 cubic feet to 800 cubic feet for our bi-monthly bills, and 300 cubic feet to 400 cubic feet for the monthly bills. Again, it generates 4.5% revenue increase, which is approximately a 3% water rate increase and a 6% wastewater rate increase.
I think just a note, correct me if I'm wrong, this is our first volumetric increase in 3 years?
Yes, because I think we just did the readiness to serve last year, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it results in a $1.21 increase for an average 1,000 cubic foot customer monthly. And this is a breakdown of the revenues for water and sewer. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but for the FY22 budget, we estimate roughly 123.7 million in revenues. We think we're going to finish the year around 124.1 million, and then the FY23 budget estimate is 127.9 million. Again, the comparison, this is the water and sewer bill comparisons, how we compare to Greensboro, Durham, Charlotte, Raleigh, and High Point. We still are very competitive in our rates. Greensboro's slightly less than us, but we're right there, neck and neck with them.
So you were able to get the proposed rates for all these municipalities?
Yes, proposed. So again, these show proposed rate increase, not necessarily adopted rate increases. Okay, that's all the agenda items that we have. Do we need to circle back on any of them, or I'll just turn it over to you?
Yeah, thank you. We have approved agenda item number 1 and open for discussion on any of agenda items number 2 through 11. Would any commission member like to pull any of agenda items 2 through 11? Hearing no comments, I would entertain a motion for a consent agenda approval items 2 through 11.
Move approval for items 2 through 11.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Broom?
Vice Chair Wesley Curtis,
Yes.
Commissioner Harold Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Harold Eustache, Commissioner Tom Griffin,
Aye.
Commissioner Yvonne Hines,
Yes.
Commissioner Hugh Jernigan, Commissioner Dwayne Long, Commissioner Chris Parker,
Approved.
Commissioner Charles Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Alan Younger.
Thank you. That motion passes. Ms. Driver?
Okay, so that gets us through the agenda. What we've got next on the agenda is, that gets us through the agenda items. Now what's next on the agenda is the water and sewer fee discussion. This is not for your approval at this meeting, but what we like to do is get feedback and potentially bring this as an item for the June meeting for approval. With the cost of service study, we looked at, what we're charging for our rates. We went through setting the objectives of how we want to recover rates from our customers. And
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
sorry. Did y'all get that? Because Siri did not. Oh, that's got me thrown off now. Anyway, so what we want to do is, so Raftellus also looked at our fees, and some of our fees we haven't looked at for several years. Plan review fees, our meter fees, just a whole list, and Ricky will go over them here shortly. Some of them we need to increase the fees, and so that's what we're presenting today. So with that, Ricky, I'll go ahead and let you jump into it, and then we'll have discussion.
Good afternoon, Chairman Total, Vice Chair Curtis, and Utilities Commission. My name is Ricky Ruvia, and I'm going to be walking you through some of the proposed cost of service fee updates for FY23. So first slide here, the cost of service fee study. One of the major objectives of this year's cost of service fee study was to evaluate the cost justifiable applicable rates for the FY23 year. Considering years past, the things that are built into that are, we are factoring into that a cost of service analysis and benchmarking that factors in interviews that the rate consultants had with utility staff, analysis of billing and revenue data, and benchmarking data against other peer utilities. So this is just a kind of a refresher. This was shown in the Finance Committee meeting. And this graph is for context. The majority of our revenues are actually tied to consumption, and these are miscellaneous. And the most miscellaneous fees in which we're going to be discussing today are actually a smaller piece of our overall revenue, which is comprised by that little green sliver of $3 million, small $3 million. So in the cost of service fee analysis, we actually looked at several different fees. And after some going back and forth and evaluating our options, we decided to pursue changes of 6 different fee types within the FY23 fiscal year. And I will mention that system development fees were not a part of this fee analysis and cost of service study, and that those will actually be evaluated in the FY23 fiscal year as part of the next fee study. So our first is the service initiation fee, and let me just walk you through how to interpret this matrix. The current column is what we are currently charging. The calculated column is what, based on the cost of service, is the justifiable fee in which we could charge. The recommended column is what we are recommending to change that fee to. The percent change is the fee over fee percent change, and the benchmark is what other peer utilities are currently charging for a similar service or fee.
So are you talking about the peer utilities in the state of North Carolina?
Yes.
The top 5?
Both peer utilities of what information we were able to glean, or the rate consultant was able to glean. Not only that, but regional, that Raftellus has leveraged some of their other clients to benchmark against.
So what would Greensboro be?
For this one, I think I think this is an average. I do not know what Greensboro's is off the top of my head.
Ricky?
Yes, sir.
question. Are you going to have a slide at the end that shows all of the 5 or 6 different changes all on the same page so that we can see? In other words, this one, for example, is a 50% increase. And
It
I
is.
want to see what the rest of them are. I may be more willing to adjust another one 10 cents and knock this back some somewhere. So I'd like to see all of them on one slide if we've got it.
I don't think we'll have them all on one slide, but we definitely, I think we can send this out to the group. This is why I didn't want to approve it. I want to let you see what we've got, and then give us your feedback, and then we can go from there. Yeah.
Any other questions? So if you would go back one more slide.
back
Yeah.
to the-
All right, so we are recommending increasing the service initiation fee by $10. And the driver here is that over time, the cost of labor and overhead costs associated with beginning services with our utilities has increased as this fee has remained the same.
What's the theory, Ricky, for doing it less than cost?
You go ahead, Courtney.
To be competitive, I mean, we look at our benchmark, I mean, and to be sensitive to our,
Well, yeah, I get that. 50% increase is a lot. Yes.
There's a level of discretion that we took with each of these fees. There's kind of a threshold for paying. We had internally had equity discussions as well about what would be not only cost justifiable, but applicable and tolerable to our ratepayers.
Thank you. Well,
Who's got the money?
and you'll definitely see it on the next slide, I think.
Yes. So this matrix goes over what our proposed rate or what our proposed fee is going to be for furnishing and installing meters. And so this was calculated as an effort to recoup some of the costs associated with materials, equipment, and labor for installing meters. And just for context, that 3 inches and above, our utility does not install. We don't do that in-house. We actually outsource for that. And so what is on this matrix, it is at cost plus 15 an administrative fee for helping facilitate that. So yeah, as you can see, the recommended fee column. 3 inches and above basically remain the same.
and this is also where someone can hire a private contractor, or do they have to go through us?
This is just for the meter.
Oh, just for the
So
meter?
it's not the actual connection.
Okay.
So, and it's, you can see how, this is the one where you start looking at, okay, when we benchmark, how we compare. The majority of those costs and the calculated cost is the actual cost for the meter. So back to Chair Tuttle's comment about why would we do it for less? We're trying to be sensitive to how we're comparing with our peers, but we also want to make sure we're, in these cases, at least recouping the cost of the meter itself. So a 2-inch meter costs $1,300 or something. I mean, I don't know exactly off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But it's the majority of that cost. So just something to think through.
Yep. And just for context, these rates have remained the same since 2014. That was the last time we updated. So materials costs have gone up, overhead tile costs have gone up. And also, if you look at the benchmark, there's some dissonance between what we're recommending and the benchmark. And a lot of that can be explained by some of our peer utilities have also not addressed their fees in a long time. As well, we have built in the concept of smart device support. So these are what it would cost, or our cost assumptions are what it would cost to put the meters into the ground right now, supported with smart features and the software associated.
Given the huge gap between the recommendations and the benchmark, do you have any indication that peer utilities are going to be following suit? Are we kind of leading the vanguard with these 200 to 300% increases, and nobody in peer utilities is going to be, yeah.
Yes, I think they'll eventually have to evaluate too. And I think what happens a lot of time with the utilities, it's kind of like us. It's such a small piece of our overall revenues that you kind of forget about it and you don't look at it and you don't study it until you do, and then you're way out of alignment. I do know that the other utilities that we're benchmarking against are also going to AMI, so their costs for these meters are going to go up, and they're either going to change their fee structure or they're going to not recoup the costs of the meters.
Is that the reason we're seeing such a jump from 2014? Is this due to AMI mainly?
The main cost is the material cost. The actual cost of the meters have gone up pretty significantly. For example, a 3/4 inch meter in 2014, we assumed $60. Now that same meter is
Wait, you said we assume.
Well, we got 6.
in this and factored into our assumptions the last time I wasn't here in 2014, so the last time we updated the fees, it was an assumed cost of $60.
Well, I don't, unless you can tell me that's what the cost was, we may have made some type of, it's a 3/4 inch, we may be doing it as a loss leader, I don't know. I would make the assumption that the actual cost was 60.
Oh, okay. But in comparison.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is that they were 60. They were. I mean, that was our cost then, and now they're.
It's gone that
up.
much.
It's $172 within the last contract that was approved by Utilities Commission for the census meters, I think last spring.
So again, remind us, which size is the most used throughout the system?
The 3/4 inch.
3/4?
Yeah, is our residential. So that's the by far the most that we have.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, cool. Next slide. Okay, so capacity analysis and network trace. So we are actually recommending eliminating this fee because we already assume the work is part of our plan review process. As you can see, we have a calculated cost, but since we already assume a lot of the function of this particular fee within the work, it just made common sense to eliminate this fee or recommend eliminating this fee. And just for context, this is a fee that we use, or work that is done that we use to evaluate plans whenever they're submitted as tapping into part of our sewer system to ensure that we have sufficient capacity to take on additional infrastructure. Okay, and plan review. So Raftellers performed a process audit of our plan review workflow, and they determined that the costs associated with plan review are actually pretty fixed, because no matter how large or small the particular development, there's a fixed cost associated with several staff between utilities and engineering that facilitate that to the point of approval. And so we are recommending a fair fee schedule that scales up, but not to the degree in which we've seen in some of our peer utilities. Again, going back to those internal equity discussions, if we were to go toward the benchmark, it would be more than 100%. But this is more so to align the idea of getting the full cost or recouping costs for a lot of the legwork that goes into reviewing these fees, as well as assuming the capacity analysis and network analysis into this as well. So if you factor all that in, to quote our plan review staff, it's still a pretty good deal, so. So you might want to take out your periodic tables for this one. This is the industrial waste monitoring charges for those who participate in our industrial waste program. And so these proposed fees are based on comparison industrial samples that we see in the private sector. And basically, we are recommending to make those comparable to what private labs, the different types of samples that they offer. All right, yeah, that's the last one.
So if I could ask a question, maybe to dumb it down for us. So when we have the operation item on the agenda, and the developer comes with a new development with water and sewer estimated cost, are these the factors that go into creating those estimated costs? Or maybe explain to us who's going to be paying these, how do they get billed?
Okay, so going back to that concept of process audit, so basically what we did was we assumed staff time into each of these fees, materials cost, overhead cost, support cost in some cases where, smart meters require software support, to try to facilitate a full cost analysis and justifiable fee for each of these proposed fees. So basically, we did an in-depth study for a lot of these internal processes to get to these recommended charges.
Courtney, go back to the 4 or 5 slides where you had the green categories at the beginning. It was your intro slide.
Oh, yeah.
One more.
Yeah, there you go.
I think what Chris is asking, or my question, is who pays some of these fees? So the industrial waste monitoring charges are factories and other dischargers. The plan review are developers, right? So could you answer that, please?
Okay, yes. So plan review, yes, developers of the development community, anything that's coming online into our system. Industrial waste monitoring charges, customers, a lot of industrial and commercial customers that are leveraging that program for the monitoring of fats, oils, and grease, and other possible contaminants that could be harder to clean within our system. The meters and furnishing, installing, also part of the development committee. Anybody that are privately, that is not part of the standard replacement schedule of the smart meter program, that want to pay for the furnishing and installation of meters. The service initiation fee, any person who starts services within our utility, and the capacity analysis network fee, that is being assumed by the work within plan review.
Yep.
Did that answer?
Apologies for not understanding.
So there's a lot of information here, and I knew there would be a lot to kind of think about, and some of them are not as significant increases as others. So I can send this information out so you can look through it. We can present this again in another meeting. I guess I just wanted some feedback as far as, or do you feel comfortable enough with it that I can bring it back in June for approval, or do you think it needs more discussion, or, just I need some follow-up on it?
Members of the commission, I think, what are your thoughts?
Finance committee is seen,
I'm wondering what kind of feedback we're going to get from some of the developers on this. How would we communicate that so they at least have a say?
I will say that there's a quarterly developer forum that the planning department hosts, and we just had one, I don't know, a few weeks ago. We did mention to that group that we were looking to increase our plan review fees. Stover attended that meeting. We didn't have the exact fees there to show them, but we have been trying to communicate with them that way. The meters, obviously, there's some significant changes to that cost.
What's your projection on revenue from these changes annually?
Run those numbers.
I don't think we ran those numbers.
I think that'd be helpful to see where that 3 million changes and cost recovery. Mr. Griffin, were you going to ask something?
Well, I was just going to mention that it would be helpful to answer that question about the developers if we knew, because those guys are going to Guilford County, they're going to Randolph County, and so they know what they're being charged down there. It'd be nice to know what those numbers are so that we know if they start hollering at us, we know we're in the ballpark or we're not in the ballpark. I think we just need some area-wide background information to play off of so we know what we're doing.
So
that-
maybe, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, that's a good point. Your peer review, I took it to mean the other 5 utilities, but I think in that case, it's neighboring counties are more important.
Okay. So a breakdown, instead of showing you an average of our benchmark, maybe a breakdown of those peer
Yeah.
reviews, so we can see what our next door neighbor's doing
I
versus
think Aaron
Charlotte.
probably knows who to talk to find out.
So more of a triad benchmarking more so than a statewide.
Yeah, just a little competitive analysis. This is where you're competing for developer action, activity, so.
Because I can tell you, the plan review fees, some of those larger fees that you saw were driven by Charlotte. That skews the numbers right quite a bit because Charlotte does
Right.
charge a lot.
Well, the other part of that is, if you could maybe tell us the last time, like, Guilford and Randolph actually reviewed their fees.
Okay.
Because if they're really low, but they last reviewed them like we did in 14,
Makes a difference, yeah.
I think the question about, Chris asked, how much money is this going to generate? When we look at the overall budget and we look each year at what we budgeted and what the revenue is, and traditionally we have beat the budget number with revenue every year. And so it's not a matter of we've got to have this money to break even. It's a matter of what's fair and reasonable and get it in play.
That's right.
Mr. Wilson.
I don't want to be cavalier about the increase for the meters, but if the cost of the installation of those is to be chiefly borne by developers, it would surprise me if the dollar amount of the increase that we're talking about would be such that it would make it so a developer wants to build houses in Greensboro instead of Winston. That's just, I mean.
It's a big increase, but
They'd just make the house $1,000 more expensive. Or whatever it is.
I do think it's a good idea, though, like I say, always to kind of be upfront with trying to share with the developers where we're headed, as opposed to doing something and have them then direct back to it. So that's the point.
that's a good point, and I'll brag on Aaron a little bit. He started that quarterly forum developer meeting when he was the planning director, and it has been very successful. And we have had those open dialogues. And even going back to what I mentioned earlier about the lift station policy and when do we accept these new lift stations into our system, we mentioned that at the quarterly developer forum and actually asked for any developers that wanted to participate in that discussion. So yeah, it's been very beneficial.
And based on the number of developments, and Aaron, you probably know this more than any of us, based on the number of developments in the pipeline right now, if they start seeing increases of like this, I mean, it all adds up to them, we're probably going to have to come up with an idea of when that is actually going to be started and at what point.
It does, and Mr. Parker, that's a good point. You know, I think the other thing we need to make sure we're having some sensitivity around is the system development fee, which we got a lot of feedback from that quarterly development forum when we started that, and so you know, making sure it's not this impression of like piling on. So I think there needs to be some sensitivity as we kind of keep working through this to see how that's going to fit in. So it's not just looking at this in a vacuum.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, thanks, Ricky.
All right, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Ricky.
Move approval.
Good feedback. Thank you for that. Looks like we have time, so I'm going to let Shane come up and update you on our capital projects. Let me get there. Okay, Shane.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and happy Mother's Day to the mothers. I should look that way more. So first up, we have the Nielsen Water Treatment Plant Modernization Project. This project is going very well so far. The notice to proceed was September 15th, should be completed by May of 2025. The excavation for the EQ basin has been completed. They're working on the sump slab and the sump walls. The chemical building and raw water booster station demo is underway. The excavation for the clarifier has been completed, and they started the subgrade preparation, and they're excavating the switchgear building right now. And here, your picture to the left is the EQ basin. You can see the sump slab has been poured, and they have the rebar up for the walls. And the picture to your right is the clarifier. So right now, we have 3 big holes there. Water main improvements. This project, we're getting close to the end. The amount spent today is a little over $2 million. We are working on Park Center Drive in Kernersville right now. So here's the project map. You can see the yellow star to the right is Park Center Drive, and then they're finishing up Kinney Road in Louisville. And here is the water line on Kinney Road. Systems-wide sewer rehab phase 3, we've used about 83% of our contract time. Kenwood Road has been completed, and we've done about 7,700 linear feet of sewer rehab. They are currently waiting on materials before starting the last 2 sites, which is West Meadows and McGregor Road. And this is a picture of Ebert Outfall. You can see the new aerial and the new manhole. System-wide sewer rehab phase 4. They did some rehab work on Patterson Avenue, 5th Street, and they helped we had an SSO on Virginia Road, and KRG came and helped us out. And we've done approximately 10,300 linear feet of sewer rehab so far. So this is where the SSO happened about 3 weeks ago. This is a very nice 1930s house. The sewer line runs actually underneath their patio, and then underneath their, I think it's a 4-car garage, and then it drops off to a downward manhole. And here you can kind of see where the shrubs are. That used to be the manhole. It's gone now.
Where at, so I can pull?
Oh, yeah, right there,
Right here? Okay,
A little bit closer to the sidewalk.
over here. Down here, okay.
Yeah, so this one was a very unique one. I guess back in the 1930s, I don't know if it's common practice or not, but the gutters and the storm drains were actually tied to the sewer line for this house. So when the SSO happened, it actually backed up and came out, and yeah, it was on their patio and everything. And
Came out the gutters.
yes. So here, the picture to the left is, you can see Shannon Bennett, our HDR engineer, and KRG looking at the CCTV video. They cleaned it first, and they tried to stick the camera in. And you can see there was so many blockages. That was one of them. And the pipe essentially should have looked like this, but it was like squish pretty close to that. And they tried for 3 days straight, I want to say, for very long hours, and just could not unblock the block edge. They tried to use the static bursting machine to like unjam it, and just could not do it. So finally, we had, the plan right now is to, they're finishing up design. I think they're QCing it today, and then we're going to tie it downstream to Buena Vista.
Mr. Long?
Is that a brick?
Yes. Yep. This is a clay pipe, and then there was a brick manhole.
Terracotta.
Yeah. Any questions?
But those are the type of the projects that can come up that we don't plan for, and we have the rehab project to be able to handle those. So this one was very unique, and we had to, think through ideas, and we're having to reroute the sewer, and found out that the storm drain, the gutters were tied into it, and all kinds of things. You find all kinds of things out there.
This one
When
was
you're
a
looking
hard
for it.
one, and KRG and Shannon they were warriors. They were out there.
Well, looking forward on that, so is every house on that street tied in that way?
Could be.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
One of the techniques that you can use is to take a smoke bomb, put it in the sewer line, put a blower on it, blow it, and watch the smoke come out all the gutters in the neighborhood.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Exactly what you'll see.
You know, much less the problem of our easements being covered with private property.
That's right.
So that's a huge concern.
Oh, yeah. And it's right near the house. I mean, there was all kinds of issues. We just need to reroute it and get it out of there.
Did one in Buena Vista about 3 years ago, and the guy's den was built over the sewer line, and a manhole was in his den under the carpet.
Oh, wow.
He had covered it over and had carpet over, oh, yeah.
Was it at least shag? You know, it's thicker.
That's the reason you moved out of the neighborhood.
All right, thanks, Shane. Courtney, we're at the end of your...
We're at the end.
All right, any visitors in the audience, I'd like to bring a matter before the Utilities Commission.
Randall, I got one question.
Hold on one second, Harold. Just, do we have any guests? Okay, any commission members like to have anything to say?
I'd like to know, on our late fees on our water meters past due, we didn't get a report this week on those.
Yes, we didn't have a slide for that, but we are about the same. As far as delinquent accounts, we haven't really moved, but we'll have that back for you in June. It's about the same than it was last month when we
Have
presented.
we cut anybody off?
We are slowly cutting people off, but again, with our vacancies, we're prioritizing those cutoffs. It's not, that has not changed either since last reported. But to answer your question, yes, we are cutting people off. Are we cutting everyone off that is delinquent? No, I would say we are not doing
I don't
that.
have to pay my water bill now.
Everyone should pay their water
For
bill.
another
please.
month, Mr. Day, you have to pay your water.
I just wonder how long I get by.
We eventually will get
To you.
to you. That's right, for the public.
I would just, Mr. Chairman, if I could take a moment, I want to thank all the people that worked on the budget. I know with the inflation numbers that we're seeing coming forward, I do appreciate how you kept us under 5%, because frankly, I always like it to be at 0, but definitely under 5% during these trying times is commendable, and thank you for working hard at doing that.
Any other commission members? Mr. Jernigan?
I wanted to reinforce that a little bit. This little process we did for like items 10 and 11 to bring these budgets, actually did little work that goes into it. Tremendous amount of work, almost year round, for forethought, planning, analysis, to get these budget numbers out. A lot of people, it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Any other commission members have something to say? I'll take just a personal note to say it's been a sincere pleasure to sit in the seat for 5 years and be a member of the commission for 14 years. I don't know about everyone else, but I plan around second Mondays of each month. I've got doctors and haircuts and everything else, so I'm going to have to flex my schedule, I guess, after this. Courtney, you're an exceptional leader. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and you've got a wonderful team. And members of the commission, I think about in this time of great divisiveness, I like our team up here. We've not always agreed, but every discussion we've had has been civil and respectful, and I thank you for that. It's been a sincere pleasure to serve with you. Mr. Day, one last time for me at least.
I'd like to make a motion, sir.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Mr. Jernigan, Marilyn, we have to roll call this one as well? All right. Ms. Broom.
Vice Chair Wesley Curtis,
Yes.
Commissioner Harold Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Harold Eustache, Commissioner Tom Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Yvonne Hines,
Yes.
Commissioner Hugh Jernigan, Commissioner Dwayne Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Parker,
Agreed.
Commissioner Charles Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Alan Younger.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.